CFR Network, CFR Sports. Good day, good night, all. Trustfully, everybody's well. Sun is shining. We're creeping into summer. Special guest with me. I have a father, a fighter, the one and only Adli Edwards. How are we, sir?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure being here. Thank you for having me.
You're most welcome. I've been looking forward to this from the first fight I saw you on was that organized that promotion down in Louisiana.
Yeah, XMMA. That's right.
XMMA, that's it. And as soon as I saw you, I thought, and let's get this out of the way because I'm pretty sure a lot of people say this. I thought this guy looks like Tony Ferguson a little bit. And then when I saw you in the ring, in the circle, in the cage, kind of, I was like, you even have like a certain moves. You've got like an aura of sorts about you, which is very similar. I'm like, okay, we've got ourselves another interesting character in the combat sports sort of field.
Yeah, I get that everywhere. Everybody sees that. Yeah. Hey, man, it's good to be associated with somebody great like that, I suppose. So couldn't.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. So are you in regards to your training ethics, is are you as unorthodox as Al Kukui?
I don't think so. I'd like to see a return on what I'm doing and know what the benefits are for doing it. I'm not quite the wild quite the wild card.
Okay,
Unless
okay.
it's borderline dangerous.
It's served him very well and much success to El Kaku in the future. It's a pity we never ever got to have that Habib fight. Yeah,
That would have been a great one to see. Always
yeah.
curious how that played out. Some interesting styles at play there, especially with both of them in the prime. I think that would have been a
Exactly. I mean, looking at it now, Tony's kind of tailing off of sorts, but again, styles make fights, etc., etc. But as you say, in their prime, that would have been so interesting. I mean, I am Team Khabib, but I've always been El Kukui. I've always, anytime El Kukui's fighting, yes, I'm locked in.
you don't miss that. That's why he's a just like he trains. He's a wild man. That dude
Yes.
will do anything and everything. You can't sleep on that guy. But
On
yeah,
yeah.
I'm a Khabib guy. I think yeah, Ferguson would have thrown some interesting. If nothing else, he'd have to make Khabib do some interesting things to deal with him. That's for sure.
100%. It's orthodox versus very unorthodox. So like it's like yeah, as we say, styles make fights, and that would have been something tremendous if it was ever to have taken place. But
Yeah.
life moves forwards. Ups and downs, highs and lows, and everything in between. So I did give you I gave you a very brief introduction, sir. Would you like to elaborate on that any further?
I think you nailed it, and I think you nailed it in the right order. Father and fighter. I'm a family man. I got two girls. I got another boy, or not another boy, another kid on the way. Got a boyfriend.
Congratulations.
So it's about to be a real full house. But yeah,
Mm.
family before everything, and secondly, hey, I love to fight. So sometimes hard to do both those together, be a family man and a fighter. But you know, do my best here, trying to find my way.
Of
And
course, of
I'm
course.
loving it. Kids are
Yeah,
great, and fighting's great. So I got no complaints. I got a great life, and hope to keep doing both those things the fullest.
100%. I mean, just being a parent is a challenge in itself and a full-time job. Being a fighter, again, a challenge and a full-time job. Being a business owner, again, a challenge and a full-time job. So you are juggling a lot of balls, senor.
I don't like doing things the easy way. May as well just go all in and see what we can come up with at the other side.
Definitely. Well, as they say, or as I've heard, through struggle comes progress. So, nothing wrong with that.
I suppose, yeah. It's as long as you're enjoying the process, and there's definitely ups and downs, and all those things. But I think as long as we're moving in the right direction and no damage done, I think we're good.
100%, sir. 100%. So let's kick Marty and Doc out of the DeLorean and let's go way back in time
Okay.
before there was combat sports on the mind. What states did we grow up?
So I'm from Columbus, Ohio, middle of the Midwest. You know,
Ah,
pretty typical, if not the typical Midwest town.
hmm.
Yeah, got two sisters. Grew up right in the middle. You know, I think common middle child syndrome, I suppose. But
That must have
yeah,
been fun.
my parents are actually immigrants from Cape Town, South Africa, and that's where they were born. With as long as my along with my older sister. So yeah,
Ah, Cape Town, South. I had no idea. Okay.
beautiful, most beautiful place in the world, hands down. No
Yeah.
no competition. So if you get a chance, check that out. It's fantastic, and I got a ton of family over there. Like I think if you're just in any area of that city and you yell, you're gonna be able to catch the ear of one of my relatives. They're all
That
over.
that's
Big
excellent.
family over there.
Wow. How have you been over there quite a few times to take it?
Quite a few times. We haven't really been there since COVID. I
Of
think last time I was
course.
there was maybe like 5 years ago. So
Yeah.
it's been a long stretch, but long overdue. I can't wait to come back
I
there.
can. Yeah.
It's
Adley, I
beautiful.
think everyone is sharing that sentiment. I mean, I think that we can see that people are starting to do the travel kind of thing now. Personally, I'm gonna wait to the Gregorian year of 2023,
Okay.
and that I'm gonna try and make the most of next year. Justly, most high willing. Things will have calmed down and we haven't had, all of the other things that we've gone through for the last few years, and we can get back to some kind of travel normality. As you say, I'll be there.
Yeah, yeah. I think logistically, even besides COVID, it's been tough getting out. A lot. I get,
Mm.
that's life. You're always busy. It's always hard to find time, but man, as soon as we can, I plan to stay there for a while. I love that place.
I can
Food,
imagine.
views, the weather, the people. It's just a great place.
Okay, so what's your on your parents' side then? So what's the makeup then? What's the ethnicity? What's the sort of the breakup?
So a little bit of a mix. My mother's father was from England, and he moved down there. And
Okay.
then my grandmother, my mom's mom, I'm actually not sure. I think, yeah, I've no idea to be honest. I don't think I know either. And then my dad's side's a lot of they call them like Cape Malay, the people from like Malaysia and the Southeast Asia that kind of
Ah,
went towards uh, Africa, and they kind of
yeah,
set up the Cape there. So it's kind of like a subpopulation of South Africa, and the best food in the world, that's for sure. A
yeah.
lot of curries and
Hmm.
oh, man, so good. I'm getting hungry thinking about it.
I can imagine your mouth's watering. I mean, I love the curry. I love curries and stuff, but I can't take the hot curries. It has to be very mild if I'm gonna do
Yeah, you know what? I've kind of pivoted on that. I used to be a hot sauce guy, but anymore, I'm with you. Let's just enjoy the
it.
flavors. Why suffer?
Well, that's it. I mean, don't get it wrong. It does open you up. I mean, for me, if I have something like really spicy and hot pepper, I start to sweat. My nose starts to open up. It really invigorates the body. It's an interesting experience,
It
but
is.
you don't necessarily get to enjoy the food per se.
Yeah, yeah, I'm with you. I think there's a real fine line, and once you start getting uncomfortable eating, it's like, why do that? Like it's just great without that extra bit of heat. So I like to say, where I'm not
Agreed.
sweating into my food.
Totally, totally. That's a fad in itself with these spicy, like 1,000-degree chips and all this kind of stuff. It's yeah.
Yeah, my wife's from San Antonio, and she's crazy with the heat she takes. I think that was one of the big selling points when my mother met my wife. My mom, they make like spicy foods at home, and then
Yeah.
my wife's eating all of us under the table with the hot sauce. So she's she's nuts with that. So I'll leave it to them. I don't have anything to prove anymore. I'm just gonna enjoy my food as comfortably as possible.
Totally get it. Totally get it. So growing up in the middle of the map, what was our interest school wise and stuff? Were we always sports kind of into sports, or
No,
was it academic wise?
surprisingly not. So yeah, I only got into sports later on in my second half of my high school career. I was a guy like playing video games, board games.
Mm,
I think a lot of it comes down to like in South Africa, they didn't really have organized sports,
Yeah.
where my parents were growing up and going to school. Um, so I think that's more for like the richer like private schools would
Right.
have, access to
Yes.
stuff like that. So, my parents played outside, climbed trees, and that's what I grew up doing. A lot of tree climbing, run around, hiking, stuff like that. And then it wasn't until halfway through high school I stumbled upon Brazilian jiu-jitsu. My dad's a computer programmer,
Okay.
and he, for whatever reason, God knows how this happened, but there was the Intro to Gracie Jiu-Jitsu
Wow.
instructional, like, sample DVD that came with some sort of, software he got, and, I took a look at it, and I thought it was super cool. I was always into, like, watching, like, kung fu movies and action,
Yes.
playing, like, Tekken and Mortal Kombat and all that kind of stuff. I thought it was awesome, and, after trying a couple arm bars with my dad, not really knowing what I was doing, they took me to a local jiu-jitsu place, like 20 minutes from the house, and it was love, man. First roll, as soon as we got in
Yeah.
there, I was like 110 pounds soaking wet, get my
Mm.
butt kicked by grown men, but it was cool. I really I enjoyed it, and
Adli,
like I
can
said,
you verbalize what it was about that first experience of rolling, as you say, rolling with these big men and getting your ass kicked? What made you fall in love with it?
I think it was a combination of things. I think interest wise, it was kind of like playing a video game where you're like building up a character, and
Yeah.
you know, and two, I really liked anytime we were at recess, play sports like, basketball or football. It's like a team game. There's like a
Mm.
big learning curve to it. And I didn't play that stuff. Like my dad didn't play, like we didn't play ball together, stuff like that. I didn't know how to play those games. I didn't like it. I was always like
Yeah.
the worst kid on the team because like I don't know the rules. I don't know how to
Mm.
dribble. I definitely can't shoot a basketball. So I just didn't like it. What I liked about jiu-jitsu when I started, even though I was awful, was like, well, I'm not letting anybody down.
Yeah.
It gives me like a nice way to like progress on it.
Hmm.
And I liked it in theory. Like I'm gonna build up and I can be a badass. I can be a tough guy.
Yeah.
It's like, everybody I think wants that. And I really like the idea behind it. Like, Gracie Jiu-Jitsu at the time, I was like a little kid. I didn't play any sports.
Hmm.
I said like 110 pounds, like I was
Yeah.
just bones. And I was the whole thing, a selling point of jiu-jitsu was that it's like leverage based. The
Indeed.
little guy can defeat the big guy. And
Yeah.
as a little guy, I was like, this is cool. It gives me, I'll be able to handle my own and
Confidence.
but I thought it was awesome. It was almost like I was living some sort of fantasy, like,
Yeah.
like, oh, this is my training montage, I was beginning it. I'm gonna end up at the end of it like Rocky fighting for the world championship.
Mm.
So I thought it was really cool in that regard.
Excellent. I like that. And many people who say when they start to do any form of martial arts, it's the camaraderie, as you say, it's the confidence that it builds, the ability to know your physical self and your inner self, like how much can I be pushed to the limit physically? You know, what are my
Yeah.
breaking points? How disciplined can we be? Knowing that I can break your arm, very easily. I can choke you
Yeah.
out like in a split second. It takes me like maybe 4 seconds. If I sink it in the right way, you're going to sleep.
Yeah. It's really interesting. Definitely discipline, some self-control. And I gotta admit, I was a kid with like a chip on my shoulder, just
Mm.
I think I probably a little bit of the wrong reasons. Like, I was like wanting to be a tough guy, or whatever.
Yeah,
And I wasn't one. But eventually that fades into from like you're doing it for the reasons of like selfish reasons. Eventually you
yeah.
just actually love the sport. And I guess that's selfish too, but
Mm.
you really just enjoy everything about it. The art of it is what ends up uh you know, surfacing, and you really see the beauty in like how the movements work, the
Yeah,
efficiency of it, everything about it, the systems of it, the
yeah.
way
The
logically it
mechanics.
comes together. It's the
Mm.
tactics, the strategy, the competitiveness, the timing. There's so much in it, and it's really is a pure sport. Maybe not just jujitsu per se, but like fighting and combat sports. There's
Yeah.
something very pure about that sort of competition. It doesn't feel like a game where these arbitrary rules are in play, and
Yes. It, it,
it's
it, al- it almost comes back down to like a primal sort of level of of combat in essence, without the dire quote unquote consequences. Like we're not trying to literally kill each other, and this is not to the death, but I'm going to prove that I have tactically, physically a better game than you, sir.
Yeah. Well, and I think it really to a bit, it almost is like, hey, I'm gonna kill you. And that, as barbaric as that may sound, I think there's something pure about like two cavemen out there. Then there's a little bit of food. Who's gonna get it? They're
Yeah.
gonna fight to the death over it. I think that's something rooted in our brain, and it feels very pure. And I know that sounds a little like rough, and
Mm,
it if you take the roughness out of that, like there's something I think I don't know, freeing about it, just like, well, we don't have to worry about like hurting each other's feelings or this or that. And thankfully, like combat sports gives you a safe way to do that where people don't have to necessarily get hurt, but you can
yes.
still kind of lean into that
Mm,
that real pure driving motivation. And
yeah.
I don't think there's any motivation like it. Yeah, I've been in games where like, you're playing a pickup game of basketball or something like, oh,
Yeah.
like, you're up 3 points on me. It's like, I don't really even care. Like, whatever, just score. You're in a play Monopoly and someone's get all the properties, like, yeah, screw this. I'm like, you can see like how people can be like, yeah, I don't really care that much about winning. Nobody is ever in a fight for their life. And they're like, nah, I don't really care anymore. Like,
Of
you're gonna
course.
die. So the motivations and the drive to do it is just
Yeah.
keeps it fun.
Y-
I can't
Yeah. It's
think
a.
anything
It,
like it.
I think you've encapsulated it very well in regards to the motivation. It's ultimately, in essence, it's survival. You've been thrown in there of sorts. You've signed the contracts legitimately. You've made the necessary contracts and been recompensed financially, etc., etc. But ultimately, you're in there to kill or be killed of sorts.
What greater motivation is there in that?
Yeah.
That's all you need, really.
Mhm.
Survival is, I think, the strongest driving factor for anything that's alive wants to stay alive.
Yeah.
I think beyond anything else. So that's yeah, it's easy to be motivated to do it.
And where did we get the progression, or where did the progression start from? Okay, now I've been 20 minutes away from my house. I've fallen in love with jujitsu now. Where did we start to think, actually, actually want to punch people in the face as well, maybe? And I think actually this could be a career for me.
So I think, just like kids dream of being like, I'm going to be some spy or I'm going to be some like whatever, like superstar, this. When I first got into jiu-jitsu and I was exposed almost right away to like, you learn about Gracie jiu-jitsu and that
Mm,
whole history, like the UFC, and you're like, oh,
yeah,
this is cool. I could be, and it's just like you being a kid, but you're like, I could be a UFC champion or UFC fighter and I could do this. And you
yeah,
start thinking about that. And I remember they had like striking classes at the jiu-jitsu place, and I would take those and do these things. So I was actually already like, as much as you can be like, this is what I'm deciding to do at like 15
okay,
years old, but I already was like, all right, this is what I like. This is what I want. I want to be a fighter. I think
yeah,
this is cool. And I remember I did a couple jiu-jitsu tournaments, just like a year in as like a white belt or whatever. And
hmm
um, one of the guys in my jiu-jitsu gym was a wrestling coach at a local high school. And frankly, my takedowns were awful. My wrestling was terrible. It was just
yeah.
like I pull guard and go from there. And I can't believe I'm even saying that now because everybody knew me would know how much I hate guard pulling. So, but he convinced me to walk on my high school wrestling team, and I did that. And the one thing that immediately I loved was there was weight classes. So from being 110 pounds, 115 pounds,
Yes.
being smashed by 25-year-old grown men, like
Mm,
200 some pounds, to, oh, these guys are, teenagers, the
yeah,
same weight class as me. That was awesome. And there's a different energy being in a wrestling room. I think that was different than jiu-jitsu. I think jiu-jitsu is cool. I think there's a lot of great things about it, the technical element of it, the self-defense, the
hmm
whatever. But something about being in a competitive high school wrestling program with a bunch of kids who were like, all that
yeah,
testosterone, kids
yeah.
going out there, it's like, so
Mm.
I really like that. And I remember my first wrestling tournament. Again, I didn't know any takedowns. I pulled guard in a wrestling match, which was a takedown and back points out the gates, and then reverse somebody get on top. And I had natural mat wrestling from jiu-jitsu, I suppose, and I kind of just took to it. And I remember my first ever wrestling tournament I got second at, and I'd been wrestling for like a month. And
Wow.
like, oh, hold up, this kid's actually not bad. And
Mm.
that really triggered for me. I remember that specific conversation when my high school coaches took me aside, like, whoa, what's your deal? Like, how'd you do that? And oh, I'm actually good at something. And from that point on, even though I knew I liked fighting and I knew I liked jujitsu, I went all in on wrestling, and I ended up wrestling through high school, wrestling through college,
Mhm.
or at least a couple years in college. I ended up having a couple red shirts, and then I
Whoa,
started
okay.
eligibility there.
Can you?
But we can circle back to that later.
Well, no, no,
But
no, 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 no. Let's. Can you just explain red shirts? Obviously, we're in the UK. We don't understand what that kind of means. So could you just explain that?
yeah. So the way the NCAA system works, the National Collegiate Athletic Association for college sports in America, they have this like regulating body, and you got to make sure that athletes can only compete for 4 years. So they go their freshman year, sophomore year, junior year, senior year.
What's the
And that's
reason for
so that
that?
people don't just say like, "Hey, I'm gonna do like the Van Wilder or whatever,
Ah,
stay in school for like it's gonna take me 8 years to graduate," and then there's like an 18-year-old kid going against like a 27-year-old dude who's been
yes.
doing it forever. So uh, you can only have 4 years to compete. The problem is like what happens if somebody gets hurt.
Yeah.
So if somebody gets injured, then what they do is they, depending on when the season you get hurt, they'll redshirt you, which means you aren't allowed to compete at all for the rest of the year, but you get an extra year of eligibility. So
Okay.
I remember my freshman year I wrestled, and then my sophomore year, right before I got hurt, and then I ended up redshirting, which means that because I got hurt, we asked NCAA to give me another eligibility. I didn't wrestle at all my sophomore year, and then my junior year, I was called a redshirt sophomore. And then, unfortunately, the injury I got was like an 18-month recovery. And me being dumb and like 19 years old, I was like,
Yeah.
I'm made out of metal. Like I'm fine. I'll bounce back. It's not a big deal. I took like 6 months off. So what do you guess happened? I hurt myself. The same injury reoccurred again. I had to have surgery again. So then my junior year, I took another redshirt year, and then I'm a senior, but I'm actually a redshirt sophomore. And this time I kind of learned my lesson. I took a little more time off, came in halfway through the year. So I only wrestled bits and pieces my freshman year,
Mhm.
and then I came in halfway through my senior year. And then so I was a redshirt sophomore when I graduated. So I only wrestled for like a year and a half actually in college. Um, like as a competitor, but at least I was like, in the room,
In
still seeing
the
stuff.
yeah, soaking up the atmosphere, getting the serious competition vibes, seeing your fellow athletes compete, and oh, maybe you should have done this, and I guess of sorts that gave you a lot of not maybe not physical experience, but it gave you some background experience which could then help you physically itself.
I gotta say, it was one of the most valuable things that happened to me because wrestling is one of those things. I grew up in Ohio. Ohio is like the wrestling mecca in the United States. It's like where all the best schools are, the best kids are. So like when I was like, there's freshmen in high school that have been wrestling since they were 5. So these kids
Mm,
come in with decade of experience
yeah,
hopping in here. It was tough for me when I first started wrestling to make up that skill and experience gap because there's a lot of moving parts to wrestling. It's not very basic. It's very
yeah.
jujitsu, people get this like idea. It's like very complex and complicated. Wrestling is just as complicated, just as complex.
Mhm.
It's just not as like that's not their selling point of it.
Mm,
And wrestling has got centuries of development. Like
yes,
it's a very sophisticated sport. It's just also very aggressive and grindy because it's a college sport. So there's a lot of great athletes doing it, and that's kind of what you're seeing. But there's a lot of nuance that's lost on people.
definitely.
So
And you're referring to freestyle wrestling, right?
I'm actually referring to folk style. So
Okay.
the freestyle is also just as tough. A folk style, the difference for those guys who don't know, folk style, every country has their own folk style wrestling style.
Hmm.
But what differentiates, and then freestyle is like the international style.
Yeah.
What differentiates American folk style from freestyle is largely the groundwork. So the scoring is a little bit different on the takedowns. Like certain takedowns worth more points, but the big thing is on the ground. And freestyle, if you take somebody down, and you don't expose their back right away to the ground, then they just start you back up on your feet and you start over and you reset it. In folk style wrestling, if you take something down, if they can't escape, they stay down the whole time. So they
Oh,
have to get up. So on top,
okay.
if you're good at keeping people down and you're good
Yeah.
at like turning people and stopping escapes, you can really dominate people there. And that's actually something that was a strength of mine from the jujitsu background. And you get points for escaping. So there's incentive for people to get up.
Hmm.
But as they're trying to get up, you can like throw them back down and try to put them on their back and do
Yeah.
all sorts of maneuvers. So yeah, that's the big difference there. I'm sorry, I couldn't
No,
remember
no,
where I was
no,
with
no.
that.
All good. No, all good. You've given and you're giving the listeners a lot of detail, which some people hear in interviews or hear people say, and it's like, okay, but what does that actually mean? Like over here, wrestling is only becoming in the last, I would say, eight, no, not eight, maybe even 5 years, becoming a lot more. We're exposed to it a lot more because there's a lot of high level wrestling coaches that are over in England now. But
Mhm.
it's still nowhere to the level that obviously America and other European countries are.
Yeah, yeah, like America and Russia and like the Middle East. Those are like
Yes.
the wrestling hotbeds. Those people can
Hmm.
wrestle. Um,
100%.
but
Yeah.
I think if I'm remembering correctly, where I was talking about before, this was getting into wrestling. We're talking about those redshirt years.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you're asking about if those redshirt years helped me. So yeah, it definitely let me catch up on the learning curve, if you will. And I gotta do it by watching. Our coach, even if you're redshirting, you're on the stationary bike every practice, like an
Hmm.
hour and a half, sitting there every day. Even if I was, in a sling and I wasn't able to do anything, I could still take it in and I enjoyed it. And I actually got a lot better. So when I came in to college, I was a walk-on. We had I think number one or number two recruiting class in the country. We had a really good coach come to our school, so he was bringing in all this, really, really good talent. Tim Durnlin, he's an animal.
Hmm.
He doesn't look it, real tiny guy, giant glasses.
Yeah.
Guy's a killer. He's one of
Knows
those
his
guys.
stuff.
Don't mess with that guy. He's not the guy you want to mess with. His
Now,
headlines are brutal, and
genuinely, to be a good coach, is that through you doing the stuff yourself and then passing this knowledge on, or can you be a good coach just by like just being a part of it and then like absorbing it and getting the experience that way?
I think both. I think probably a combination is best, but
Hmm.
I also think that there's like coaching isn't like, hey, you are like from 0 to 100. What number are you as a coach? Like I think there's different things about coaching that some people are better at than others. Like some
Yeah.
coaches are great motivators.
Hmm.
Some are really good at like reading the athlete and knowing how to adjust. Some are great at certain technical or tactical skills, and then some are good at explaining those skills.
Hmm.
And then there's different tactical, technical skills, and I think there's a lot that goes into it. That coach Tim Durnlin, though, he was a beast. I want to say he was number one in the Olympic ladder, and
Wow.
unfortunately, he was a little guy, the smallest weight class, and they got rid of his weight class, and he was
Hmm.
like a naturally that weight. So I think the weight class above, he didn't have the size to
Yeah.
compete with, but he was great. He had a great front headlock system, good single leg, was mean on top. He was great, and he was a motivator. He'd been in these rooms with great people, and you kind of got that sort of energy from him and that that readiness to compete, and that's something that wore off on me as well as the technical stuff. So I got a lot out of that redshirt year, and when I came out from being a walk on, and I was like number 6 on the line as a freshman,
Yeah.
to I'm starting as a sophomore, ranked top in the country. I think it was like top 8 for a while, and I think it really helped. You know, uh,
Mm.
let me stew in it a little bit, like what
Yes.
real wrestling is like,
Hmm.
and that was cool. And honestly, I really loved it and enjoyed it. And part of me wishes I could do it longer, but I also was I think at that point in my life where it's like I don't want to pay for more school or go back to school for something when I realized already, and I ended up getting through because of the red shirts. I got like went through grad school uh at my college, and I realized like as much as I like studying and I like
Mm.
learning stuff, my passion is in these sports, and I really want to compete,
Hmm.
and I want to compete in MMA, and you can only be an athlete for so long, so let's get to it.
Of course, you have a window of opportunity to compete. So yeah, it makes perfect sense. Did you go down the amateur route first, or go straight into training and into your first professional?
Yeah, I did. I think it was 1 week after my national tournament in college. I went to the local MMA gym near my school and moved around with some guys. And I was like, "Oh, this is great! It was easy. I can do this." And of course, I'm out wrestling these guys. They don't wrestle. I was a good
Yeah.
wrestler, but I was like, so for me, I was like, "Oh, this is gonna be cakewalk." And then when I moved back down to Columbus from school, I found a local gym, Buckeye MMA. Coach Josh Williams, who I still work with to this day, kind of took me under his wing. They had a lot of guys who were uh, doing well on like the upper ends of the regional circuit,
Mhm.
and I went right in the fold. I think I fought. So I got out of school like beginning of summer, and then end of the summer I had my first fight. So I didn't waste any time. I got right to it. I ended up having 9 amateur fights, which is quite a lot. I really want to develop some stuff, and
Of
I
course.
honestly had a hard time getting fights. I had a lot of fights drop through. Probably 2 out of every 3 fights ended up fizzling out, which is a bummer.
What do you reckon that what you put that down to? I know amateur is quite competitive of sorts. Was it down to people knew your track and were like, whoa, wait a minute, should we be doing this?
Yeah, a lot of times that was the case. I had you know, I was number 1 in the state pretty early in my amateur career, and then, nobody's gonna pay you to go out of state, and there wasn't really a reason to. There were
Yeah.
enough shows in Ohio,
Hmm.
but, I, just couldn't find guys. The gym that we ended up being absorbed into, Ronan Training Center, which is a giant, awesome training spot in the middle of Columbus, Ohio now, kinda absorbed all the other gyms.
Hmm.
So everybody who was at one of their satellite gyms or, like, affiliates knew who I was, and they didn't wanna fight me. So it's like I had to fight somebody either in Cleveland or Cincinnati, like, the city's over, and,
Yeah.
it was tough getting those fights. I think a lot of guys I had a lot of times where we weighed in for the fight, and I don't look like a scary guy. Like, I'm not fooling myself. Like, I'm not an intimidating person, but
Mm.
for whatever reason, between us weighing in and the fight, they would no show. I'm like, why are you going to cut weight, drive all the way over to a place,
Yeah.
all your plans, and then just bail out? So I try to look as like not intimidating as I can.
Smile a lot.
Yeah, which is why I got my nickname. I think Sunshine, just trying to be friendly, trying to lull them into sense of comfort so they can take the fight. But yeah, so it was a pretty long journey. I think it took me quite a few years to get from my first amateur fight to my last. Maybe like 4 years. I want to say maybe 5.
If you could have if you could have painted that picture back then, would it have been like maybe a 2-year run, amateur wise, and maybe only a few of those people no show, and then jump straight into professionals? Or in hindsight, do you think actually the 4 years, having that additional fights and stuff gave me that experience?
I think it's hard to say, honestly. I think one of the worst things for me has been my impatience. I think that's what cost me in college, like rushing through injuries,
Hmm.
because I was like, I have to come back because I really want to be an All-American. I really want to be a national champion. So if I don't, you know, get back to training sooner, I'm not gonna have as much time to develop. I always
Yeah.
feel like I was racing the clock because I started late.
Hmm.
And then when I was an amateur fighter, I felt the same thing. I'm like, okay, I'm like 22 years old, 23 years old. I'm like, man, there's guys in the UFC already at my age. And I still
Yeah.
have to go through an amateur career and then build my way up through the pro ranks. So I was always rushing things. And I
Yeah.
ended up keep re-injuring the same injuries because of that. And I finally honestly, like halfway through my pro career, probably started being like, well, hold up. Let's not rush it. Let's take our time. Let's do this as long as it needs to take. And even
Hmm.
if that means it's not going to be ideal, I wanted to be in the UFC, be in Bellator, be in these big promotions, fighting for world titles. Like everybody's like, I don't want to win the title. I want to, you know, defend it for like 10 years or something like that. And
Yeah.
every year you're not in there, you're like, well, even at the highest possibility, it gets smaller and smaller and smaller. So I think my impatience pushed me to do things at a faster rate than my body was capable of, and I paid for it. So I got hurt as an amateur, same injuries again, and I finally learned my lesson. I took my time. I let my body heal up.
Hmm.
So, I wish hindsight wise, I think that was the lesson to be learned was just take my time, relax. You're going to get through, just enjoy the journey rather than wishing I was further on in my career.
Already there.
Yeah.
Keyword you there. Enjoying the journey. I
Yeah, and
think.
it's a shame because, I've had some really good memories. I've had some really good experiences,
Mhm.
and, almost if I didn't work as hard, I did push myself past where I needed to be and was more, like I said, patient, more content with where I was in my process, I think I would have been better off. But you can only learn from it. And I plan to take those lessons, apply it to the rest of my life. So
Exactly. And you've got plenty of life left, sir. So like we've just got to roll with the punches. And fortunately, we've got to roll with the punches, make sure that we yeed some of the warnings and take on some of these experiences and think, actually, you know what? If I do this for the fifth time, I'm totally insane because insanity is doing the same thing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result. So let's
Yeah.
not do that. Let's not fall into those realms.
And it's hard not to fall in those traps because I think you get nervous, like you're not doing enough or you're
Yeah.
missing your shot or but I was always the guy who maybe was a little bit too ambitious with what I was trying to do too much at the same time. My college coach used to lock me out of the wrestling room. I wasn't allowed in there. So I because I'd go in for 2, 3 extra sessions on top of practice, which I think I was always trying to make up for lost time.
Yeah.
But I'm always like, you always think like, what if I started when I was 5 like these other guys? But yeah, hey man, that's not what happened to me, and that's not where I am. And I
Definitely.
think I still have time for a good trajectory. And if I don't, make it realize my potential by the end of it,
Yeah.
that's okay. I think I'm still doing great, and I think I could still do great things, even if I didn't have the ideal path.
Oh, 100%, 100%. I mean, based upon I think I've seen 3 fights of yourself. Um, and it's not like we're talking, yeah, another 4 fights or so, and you'll start to be able to be up there with some names and stuff. You're a very talented grappler, and you're not afraid to use some of your limbs as well. You're not one-dimensional, and that's the thing. I think as with how the sport has evolved in regards to mixed martial arts. It was before, it was style versus style. Now, as you say, even the children growing up wrestling at the age of 6, blah blah, they're now transitioning to they're growing up training mixed martial arts. They're doing it all. So if you do come from a wrestling, grappling background, a jiu-jitsu background, you have to, it's imperative that you add on the other skills, which is the striking element, to be able to then tack that onto your already foundational house that you've already built and created. You're just building like another garage on top of it with the striking elements.
Yeah, I think you gotta layer. I think you can't just I think a lot of people make the mistake of they find something they're good at and they just lean all the way into it. And I think that's great for publicity. It's easy to be like, oh, this is the triangle guy, this is the head kick guy, this is
Mhm.
the guy with heavy hands, or the sprawl and brawl guy. But you're eventually going to find somebody who's going to be better at you than those things. You can't be the best at everything. And even if you are the best, the second best guy, like the margin's so close, it's basically a tie.
Yeah.
Like the better you get at these things, the smaller the margins. And then even if you are like, hey, I'm a better wrestler than this guy, but the wrestling's kind of close, the better striker's going to win. Obviously, it's the wrestling almost cancels itself out. So I think you got to be well-rounded in this age. If you don't, you're going to get exposed, or you
Mhm.
better have a really, really good relationship with the matchmaker. He's got to have to hook you up. So I think that's what it comes down to. And I think now the evolution of the sport is, who can do MMA better. It's not
Yeah.
about who's a better striker, better jiu-jitsu guy. It's about who can combine the elements better based on their opponent and their attributes or whatever. And I think that's cool. It's actually more fun that way. I think it's less cut and dry maybe for the casual fan to see, but
Yeah.
yeah, the complexity is cool. I think it adds some layers.
100%. And as you say, for the casuals and the hardcores watching, I mean, there are fights which are very, very grapple heavy, and there's not really much going on apart from, as they say, laying and praying. Now that's boring as hell.
But
When
that's
we're flowing,
I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
no, go continue. Sorry.
I'll say, but yeah, I agree. That is boring, but that's not because the wrestler guy is boring. It's because the other guy can't counter wrestle. So
Yes.
whose fault is that? You can't get mad at the other guy for not wanting to sit there and get cracked in the head because the other guy sucks at getting up. So
Indeed, indeed, and that falls in nicely to the topic around wrestling grapplers. And okay, of course, we've got control. There's octagon control or cage control. Um, but if you lay on someone or if you control someone without actually putting any kind of submission attempts in, not really striking any significant strikes, like what are we talking about? Should you be in a different sport where it is just literally grappling? Because we are talking about mixed martial arts now, right?
yeah, and I think a lot of guys who are able to do that take advantage of that, gapping either the opponent's skills and
Mm,
combined with the rules, like if you're on top of the guy and you get a dominant spot, you can just hang out there. And
yeah,
I don't like it. I came up wrestling, and then in wrestling, you get stalling calls, you get stalemates. Like if you're in a position for too long, it's like break it up, let's start over. And
yeah.
I don't like the lack of action. I'm an aggressive person. I want to get in there, put points on the board, maximize. I think I get it. It's tactical to do those things, but
Mhm.
it's even if you say it's not about some people, it's not about entertainment. It's about being a true martial artist and who would win if there weren't refs to stand it up, or whatever.
Yes.
Whatever. And I get it. I do get it. There's merit to that. And I do understand that it's also a money business. And you gotta there's those things at play. Personally, it is what it is for me. I just the way I am, way I'm wired, I want to get after it. Even though I'm a very heavy top person. I like taking people down. I like being on top of them, but I don't like the sitting down there and being like,
I
I'm
got
gonna
ya.
so much of the round, like we can lock down here. Did I get 3 out of 5 minutes? Am I gonna get a nod from the judges on the control time?
Mm,
When I'm taking people down, I want to wear them down. I want to do striking damage. I
yeah.
want to look for my opportunities to submit the guy, walk him into traps, and some people are just like sit there and brawl, types might miss some of the nuance there, but to me, that's still exciting. And I like doing that. And I like doing damage from top, especially like it because hard for them to damage me. you know, keep my face in one piece. But, if we have to brawl, we got to brawl. Sometimes you got to fight and throw, but I want as many fights as I can. And if I'm taking too much damage, it means I have to take more time off between fights. And it's easier to control somebody and smash them when they can't smash you back.
I
So,
mean, on that point, I think what should be done, maybe, I mean, and that is a very valid point. If you strip it away, okay, if there was no referees, you could literally control someone until they say, all right, then all right, mate, look, I've had enough. All right, and you've won, man. Look, you've literally won. I don't want any more. Just get off me. Okay, so maybe we need to have a promotion where there's like a half an hour time limit kind of thing, where as long as you're not gouging eyes, take it back of sort to the old sort of school. Then yeah, that's great.
I think
But
from
in
a
this sports entertainment era that we're in now, we can't have that. We
I
can't have
agree.
that.
I think logistically it doesn't even make sense. How would you even allot time for that?
Mm.
Like what is it, 30-minute matches? How is it gonna be 5 finishes? They're only got 20 minutes on TV, is it gonna
Yes.
be the full duration? Like who's got time for that? And I think what you're gonna see are a lot of styles based on that where they take advantage of that, and that's gonna be super boring.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I don't want to see that either. I think there's always gonna be, no matter how you play the rules, people who take advantage of it in different ways, and that's
Of course.
unfortunate. And I do think that sometimes the promoters take it too extreme where they find the guys who are exciting over the guys who have maybe the ability to beat these guys
Yeah.
because they want to avoid some of that. But I don't know the answer, to be honest. I
I
can
can
just
say I can give you one. And
what's
this isn't even revolutionary as well.
okay.
Pride used to give yellow cards, didn't they?
That's
And
true.
Pride is obviously a defunct organization. It was an organization which I'm very fond of, won championship.
Mhm.
And the referees aren't scared to say, oh, look, what are you doing? Wait a minute, we're supposed to be fighting. And if they're not giving a yellow card, because you've got yellow and red card, they're saying action, action. There's too
Yeah.
much to this lateral movement business. Let's get down to it, man. We're paying you to fight.
Yeah, I agree. I think engagement's important. Um I have a hard time disengaging in fights, and I think you got to go forward, and that's how fights need to be determined. It's just like if we're in a war, if
Mhm.
we're battling an army versus an army, I can't be like, all right, I'm gonna fight this one guy for 30 minutes. Like what's going on around you? You got to get in there and get after it. And I think some nuance, obviously, and some skill, and there's restrictions, and you know, there's only certain things you can do, so it might take a little longer. But you need to be, in my opinion, I think it feels almost natural to be all in on attack.
Yes.
Unfortunately, like you said, people take advantage of it, and it ends
Mm,
up being a snooze fest sometimes. They run the whole time,
yeah.
or they try to hold you down, or they use stalling tactics. They go on bottom and they turtle up
Yeah.
so you can hit the back of their head, and you're like, "Dude, what are you doing?" So it's anytime
Mm,
there's a sport, there's gonna be people trying to or anytime there's rules, there's people trying to take advantage of the rules. So
Gaming the system, unfortunately. I mean, it's still a wonderful sport. It's still an absolutely wonderful sport. I thoroughly enjoy it. At the moment, the last, I would say, 6 or 7 months, I've really fallen in love with Muay Thai.
fantastic sport. It's beautiful.
It really is. Before, I mean, it's quite big in the UK, but I don't know, because it wasn't on television, because I didn't actually see it growing up and stuff. I just knew a few people that did it, or someone's uncle was a champion, or oh, okay, blah blah blah. It didn't really excite me, but now I'm seeing it and seeing, the rule set and how things are. It is truly. If some of those Muay Thai fighters transitioned, as a lot of them are, into mixed martial arts, we're seeing that there's a lot of problems happening.
I like those little gloves Muay
Oh
Thai matches.
yes.
That's cool. That's really cool. That's one of my
Mhm.
favorite sports right now, just to see those. And I haven't really been following it too heavily, to be honest. It's hard to watch all this stuff, honestly. There's
Mhm.
so much happening in combat sports of all time, which I guess is a good problem to have. But man, those matches are exciting. I feel like it takes off some of the problems with like people complain about the kickboxing and boxing, like the big gloves, it's hard to
Yeah,
hit. So kind of like bare knuckle, cross that bridge a little bit. I think the little gloves Muay Thai is a great other option. I think that's really cool.
definitely. I mean, you got Lithway who do the literally
Headbutt.
headbutts and bare knuckle kind of thing. That is brutal.
I
And
would
then
say I
obviously,
like the headbutts. I think those are cool. I wish they had them in MMA, to be honest.
I don't know how that would look on television. The headbutt, to me, I just think of drunken yobs in a pub when I see someone headbutting. It just, to me, there is skill to it. I know there is skill to, utilizing your head properly so you're not getting hurt, but it it it's it just seems dirty. It just seems just grimy and dirty to headbutt someone.
I mean, is it dirtier to knee somebody in the face or elbow in the face?
I
I don't know.
prefer that. Give me that all day. Elbow me or knee me in the face, man. Don't headbutt me.
Yeah, I don't know. I think they're cool. Granted, I've never fought with headbutts. I'm sure there's more nuance, or some elements. I've never done a Lithway fight or even trained it, but I think it, what that would do? That'll stop the lay and pray on the ground. You throw a
Yes.
headbutt down there, all those boring positions become like fight finishing. So I think an element that could be pretty cool.
Now, all we need to do is find a rich oligarch with some money, and we'll put a promotion together. I mean, it's kind of similar of sorts to what the running man, who I call him, Jorge Masvidal. He's
Mhm.
got that promotion, and that's all. That's bare knuckle. It's MMA bare knuckle, isn't it?
I think it might be.
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure, but that sounds right.
If we could modify that a bit and yeah, do some headbutts as well. I mean, because he comes from a street fighting sort of. Obviously, there was no headbutts. It was more striking element, but that would be wonderful, man. That would be a nice little twist to it.
I'd watch it. I
Mm,
think it'd be
100%,
I
sir.
think,
100.
you might see some shorter careers. I'm sure headbutts are gonna mash up people's eyebrows and give people stitches, but
Yeah. I mean, I'm
yeah.
glad you said that. Thank you for bringing it back to reality, because I'm going on, like, as you said, the computer game thing. We've got to realize, guys, this is to the listeners and to everybody. These athletes, these prize fighters, are putting it all on the line. They're spending months, they're spending thousands of hours. Some people aren't as smart as others, and they're sparring ridiculously hard. They're getting knocked out every other flipping month and stuff like that. This takes a huge toll on the body. Now, MMA is only what, 25 years old, 30 years old?
It's young, that's for sure. I think closer to 30, I believe.
30, yeah. Now, like, what are the effects? We can see some of the effects of some fighters who, as you say, the brawl and sprawl type guys, and they're not doing too good. The guys who overuse steroids and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think being a newer sport, especially like a contact sport, I think you're
Mm,
seeing a lot of issues with the head damage and the trauma. It's kind of like football,
yeah,
but I think it's less regulated and less paid attention to. I think now people are getting smarter to it, but I think there's still these pockets of people who are old school and they train a little, too
yeah.
dangerously, especially if you're trying to make a career out of it or trying to have a life after fighting.
And that's the most important thing. I mean, definitely. I mean, I salute everybody who has the balls or the ovaries to step into, a circle, a cage, a ring in your, in essence, underwear with cameras, hundreds, maybe thousands of people around, and to fight. I, that, the, I, it's mind-boggling. Adley, I don't know how you do it.
Yeah, to be honest, the fans and people there, I could do without it. I don't even care, honestly. I know that's important to making some money, to
Mm.
making obviously a sport where there's paychecks to be had, which is great to be able to train full time. Having you know, uh, the fans for sure. I get it, but I just like fighting, and I think it's cool to. I'm not in it for the fame. I just want to be the best, even if that means and nobody else knows I'm the best but me. I want to know that, and I want to train for that. So the cameras and stuff are just like
Byproduct.
yeah, they're just part of the show. Yeah, it used. I always thought it would make me more nervous, but it never really has. I just kind of get in there. It's like blinders. I'm like, I'm just here.
Mm,
It's survival now, right? I'm killing this
yeah.
guy. I don't care who else is seeing. I'm gonna do it or die, and that's it. What else is there?
Mm.
Who cares what such and such thinks of watching me if I'm dead? So that's how I brainwash myself, at least.
Totally. So you don't want to get into like the Conor McGregor kind of status. You don't want to get anywhere near that.
What's that? The
Where like money wise and the fame. I mean, he can't walk around the streets on his own, can
yeah, I guess not.
he?
I'm not a big. I don't think I need a lot to live happy. I
Mhm.
want to have enough money that I can live comfortably, that my family can live comfortably,
Of
that
course.
if something bad happens, something tragic, like things tend to
Mm,
happen, we can take care of it without worrying about it. That's my goal, my dream
yeah.
between financially. I don't need a yacht. I don't need a super fancy car. I don't
Mm,
own any expensive watches or necklace or anything like that,
okay.
or nice
Yeah.
clothes. I love what I do and I love my family. And if I can do those two things, I
Then
just
yeah.
need money for that. Unfortunately, like with inflation, you kind of need a lot of money to do that.
Of course, of course. I think in America and in England, with the rising utility bills, gas, oil, like it's challenging to say the least. But we'll get through it. I think we will.
Yeah, I think so. We'll make it. We always do.
Yeah. So back to yourself and your last appearance, which was a short notice fight
Yes.
for a lot larger promotion, Bellator. Talk us through all that. I mean, how did that all come about? And what was your feelings coming away from it? I will say before you answer, nothing but heart, man. Excellent performance. I mean, it wasn't like, oh my God, what's this guy? Who is this guy? What is he even doing here? Because as we know, unfortunately, sometimes when it's a late opponent change, it's like, well, who is this guy number one? What is his record? And normally the record's like, oh, that's why he's in here, kind of thing. And it's just literally like as boxing tends to do, it's just like a name just to get, another win on someone else's record. And you was not that, sir.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. But not a performance I'm proud of. Not definitely not a result I'm happy about. But
Mhm.
so to walk you through it, I guess I had that fight for XMMA beginning of April. And then like a week after that fight, I got a call from my manager for Jason House from Iridium, and he said Bellator is looking for somebody to replace Jeremy Kennedy to fight Aaron Pico. People don't know Aaron Pico I think he's ranked number 4 in the world. He's a real tough wrestler,
Yep.
tough fighter, pretty good on a good streak. And they offered me a multi-fight deal to do it, and it made sense to do it. I know there's fighting for XMA, which is a decent regional promotion against a decent opponent. I fought Josh Harvey. I think it was like 8-1,
Mm,
to be honest, it was a match where the styles made a lot of sense. My coaches, like, I didn't really train much for that fight, to be honest. My coach was hurt. He had like neck surgery.
shit.
I was like holding pads with, some friends from the gym, which is great. And I had like a couple extra sessions, but I didn't really train too much for that fight. I was like, not that I'm not training hard, but I got to still feed my kids and do other things. I had some
Yeah.
injuries I was dealing with little things here and there. And
Hmm.
I knew I had enough tools to win that fight. It was a great matchup. And, I beat Josh Harvey in the first round. Coming off that, my manager told me before I got this call from Bellator, like, hey, man, we're good. You're on a massive streak. I think that was 7 in a row.
Yep.
And they're like, dude, you're going to get the call for sure. You're probably going to get it like later this summer. So I'm thinking like, all right. And I sit pretty low. My weight class, I'm always like, I can make weight last minute in case I get a last minute call up
Hmm.
opportunity. Fortunately, they've been telling me I'm like on the edge of a last call up opportunity for like 3 years. So I'm sitting like real small for a long time. So like I'm pretty tiny, and I guess it worked out in this case. Guy gets called to fight Pico, 6 days notice, and I easily can make the weight and get in there. But he's at a full camp for another tough guy, Jeremy.
Exactly.
I've had
Yeah.
a privilege of training with him once in Vegas, and the kid's tough. He's good, great, fantastic grappler. And I hop in there, and I gotta say, if you look at everybody in the Bellator roster, style wise, Pico's maybe the worst matchup for me. As somebody who does their, you know, their best work from top, it's hard
Hmm.
for me to deal with somebody like Pico, who's on paper a much, much better wrestler.
Yeah.
And he's dangerous on the feet. He's explosive. He's powerful. And of
He's got
course,
power in his hands. Yep.
yeah, and of course he was training full time for this fight, where I was like, I know where I'm at with my preparation, and people get this idea like, oh, you should always be ready and do this. Like people have no idea what it takes to be able to train as a professional athlete at the highest level, like two,
Yeah.
3 sessions a day, like you do all these things.
Exactly.
And on the regional scene, like, am I gonna do all that for $1,000 when just flying my corners over there is gonna be $1,000? So I break
Yeah.
even fight. Like,
Mm.
I still gotta work. I still gotta like these hours don't show up in the middle of the day, and I got kids to take care of. So not to make
Yeah.
excuses, but
No,
just
it's life. That's
like,
real life.
yeah, just to help people understand like where this is. So, which is ultimately why one of the main reasons I took this fight with Pico, because I got a contract with Bellator, which financially is a lot more sustainable to train
Hmm.
than the regional scene. So I got this great fight opportunity, and this is where I'm upset with myself because I took this fight. It's last minute. Odds are stacked against me. And most of that last week, I didn't train like at all for that fight. I was just doing logistic stuff, getting my medicals done for Bellator, flying out
Okay.
there, all this like
Yeah.
paperwork stuff. And then my corner had to like they have this really strict policies with Viacom for like the COVID restrictions and the
Okay.
quarantining stuff. I didn't even see my coach till like the day of weigh-ins, the first time I got to train with him that whole week.
Wow.
So it was logistically pretty challenging to get in there.
Mm.
So we kind of, and this is where like I have like I, especially because it's fresh in my mind, this loss, but this sort of like regret about it. I think we picked a strategy to deal with Pico to neutralize his strengths,
Hmm.
like how can I make it so he's not able to do a lot of damage? How can I stay away from his best weapons, do these things? And I think in theory it was great for somebody who's trying to come in there and like survive. But like we said, man, I like to I'm aggressive and I want to win. And I think
Yes.
being in there, as soon as I was in there, like I just wanted to fight him and compete and get after him.
Yeah.
But I also like didn't practice the tools to do that. So I'm like, I'm half in like I need to be circling and evading, and then I'm half into like, go get him. What are you
Tack.
doing?
Mm.
Don't be like you're not scared, but go get this guy. And then half of you is like stick to the game plan, and then it's like mental gymnastics myself, which is not the time you want to be doing that with a number 4 guy in the world in your face,
Exactly.
throwing bombs at you, cracking you. So it was tough, and I think at the end of the day, maybe it was a smart move to do that. I lost definitely, pretty decidedly, unfortunately, but I didn't get
Well,
obliterated the
well,
whole time. I lost a lot of
exactly.
damage,
That's the point. I mean,
but
I know for you yourself, ego wise, and you just being a fighter. Of course, it wasn't the performance you wanted, and of course, you wanted to win. But as I said, you know, call me a casual or whatever. But from my vantage point, watching that fight 3 times, I've I've seen as I prefaced before, I've seen other opponents come in against Aaron, against other fighters, and it's been totally different. It has been totally different. I'm not saying that's the said rule, but there's genuinely 1 or 2 people that will be like, wow, flipping out, he put up a good fight, man. I've never even heard of him.
Yeah, maybe, but again, I don't care what anyone think. In
Mhm.
my own head, and you're probably right, it's mostly my ego, I'm sure, but I wish I gone out there and I know I didn't have good preparation for him. And here's also the problem. The way Pico fights everybody is the same because he's got we talk about like people having certain strengths and they just
Yeah.
double down on him. And I'm more well-rounded, so he's somebody who I'd have to like adjust my style to fight. Especially because he doesn't fit against my, normal strategy. But I wish I had gone in there and been like, I'm getting after it. And I'm going to find a way to win. I think at the end, it was our strategy felt a little more like survive, don't let him do damage to you, be safe, and then see if you have an opportunity to win. And that put him too much in the driver's seat. And I feel
Yeah.
like I couldn't get my rhythm and my timing. And, I hope I fight him again down the line and, can show people what I'm more capable of. But the nice thing is I got some more fights in Bellator coming up and I can still show to everybody and
Yeah.
myself that like, we're ready for the stage and I can be fully trained and ready and prepared to like get in there and, you know, showcase.
Definitely.
Perform.
Now, did I mishear, or did you say it was a 3-fight deal that you signed with Bellator? Bellator.
I got 3 more fights with them. So I'm hoping to fight my baby's due middle of October. I think October 11th, I want to say.
Okay.
So I'm hoping to fight before then. Afterwards, who knows how easy the baby's gonna be sleep. So before that would be ideal, but I still want to rush it because, like I said, it was hard training before, not being able to put all my resource and time into it. Now
Yeah.
I will be able to, so I want to do that. Unfortunately, I got a little tweaked in my knee during the fight, so it's still healing up a little bit. So even
Yeah.
though I'm so pumped and excited to like go all in on training, and I'm like,
Hmm.
I can't. Like I'm waiting on this couple nagging injuries to fully resolve. So
Yeah.
I want to be able to fully commit
Of course.
to reap the benefits of a full committed camp and then fight. I don't think it makes sense to like have this opportunity and then just blow it. Like I want to go out there and show people. And when I fight, I want to
Yeah.
fight. I want to
Of
really show people what I'm capable of. And then I can knock, boom, boom, boom. Let's rattle them off. I don't mind fighting back to back to back. I just need to be healthy for it and
of
and
course.
prepared and trained. And that's I want to see what I'm capable of. So
Hmm.
unless I can train, how am I going to do that?
Yeah. Makes perfect sense. Ideal world, if you could speak to Mr. Coker and say, look, these are the next 2 opponents, or this is the next opponent I would like. Who would that be?
I don't know, to be honest. I think they got a lot of matchups on the roster that I think I would do great against. So,
Mm,
um, yeah, I don't really have any names yet. I think when we
okay.
get closer, I'm gonna look at it.
Yeah.
I thought about like kind of studying more deeply in the film, but since we're so far out, who
Hmm.
knows? You guys might fight right before then, and they would be out or they get
Yeah.
injured. So I was like, don't let's not even stress that. Let's just worry about myself, working on my own skills, and then we can apply that to wherever we are at the end of that period. Whoever matches up best, I think. Let's get some
Yeah.
fights where I can showcase what I'm capable of.
Of course, perfect your own skills, and as you say, yeah, closer to the time. Makes sense. Makes perfect sense. Um, in an ideal world, again, let's stay on the imagination sort of lane.
Okay.
Would you like to, in essence, become a champion in Bellator, and maybe then go over to the UFC, become a champion there, go to another organization, for instance, one maybe, or and become a champion there? Is your goal to be a multiple or promotion champion, or just to be in North America's biggest champion, well, promotion?
I want to fight and beat the best in the world. So whatever it takes to do that, I think it'd be great. I think we're in a great spot where Bellator is like, I think featherweight's their strongest division. I think it rivals the UFC's. I think they're the top of the Bellator division is really stacked. So I think winning a world championship there would be fantastic. I think if I was in the UFC and won a world title, I'd still be like, well, I wonder how to do against the Bellator guys.
Yeah.
So I think eventually I'd like to fight everybody. Maybe they can come over to Bellator. Maybe I'll go over there. Who knows? I have no idea how it's going to pan out.
Hmm.
All I know right now is I want to be the best version of myself and beat the best guys I can. So, uh, hopefully, I don't know how the sports are going to, what UFC, Bellator, all these
Of
things are going to look like
course.
in a couple of years. So,
Yeah.
new organizations are coming to the front, and I think it's opening up the playing field for everybody. So, I just want to fight the best. I want to beat the best. That's for sure.
100%, 100%. As we wind this down, so I have two last questions for you. First one, have you had fun today?
Yeah, this was great, man. It was fun. I haven't talked to anybody in a while. This sport's very hot and cold, you know. When you got something going on, you like 10 people want to talk to you at once. It's overwhelming, and then when you don't have a fight going on, it's like you don't exist. So it's like you're a nobody. So yeah, I've
Well,
enjoyed the quiet, but you know, it's nice, like kind of reliving the excitement of these things. You know, you kind of just it's just part of like your life and your everyday background, and you don't really
mhm.
get to vocalize this. So it's nice to go down my own memory lane and remember what this is about. This is cool.
Definitely. I mean, yeah, that is what we do here on CF1 Network, CFR Sport. Is it's not just about, okay, let's talk about fights, but it gives people an opportunity, fighters, athletes, warriors, you know, to number one, express the human experience, and to, to unpack things which may give shed light in certain areas, as you've done in regards to rule sets and, the wrestling elements. Many other outlets tend, as you say, to be all about the fights. And that's fine, but you're more than fighters. We need to know who you are so we can be more invested in you. We can, you know,
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's really nice to talk about these things. I think it's what makes me who I am. You know, you fight and you have a style, but a lot of the way you fight is based on your personality and your tendencies and things like that. And yeah, I think it's deeply rooted into what you're around and what you're about. So
mhm,
that's cool. That's a good point. It was fun
definitely,
talking about it. Thank you
100%.
for asking and being interested.
You're most welcome. It thoroughly excites me, and I'm so interested, as I say, with prize fighters specifically, in the mechanics behind, like, well, why did you do it? Why did you want to, like, put yourself, expose all of your potential vulnerabilities to the world for the potential ultimate rush and glory of, I won? And I've got my show and my win money now, kind of thing, which is a stupid model, but I won't even get into that.
Yeah. That's a whole nother discussion.
Indeed, sir. Indeed. Oh, there is actually. I've got another question. Which I don't know why I neglected to ask you this one. Growing up and now, what spiritual or religious system were you part of?
Um, I guess growing up, my
Yeah.
parents were Muslim, but now I would say I, I guess spiritual, but I would not say religious.
Okay.
Yeah, gotta I think just kind of the common sense ethics kind of rule my decision making
Hmm.
more than any other sort of dogma or religion. So
I totally understand. I totally
yeah.
understand. I tend, and many people I speak to tend to stay away from the titleage and, as you say, the dogma of religion. But as I say, 97.5% of the people at least hold steadfast that there is a supreme creator that did it all. And that, to me, is a good sign, at least. Unfortunately, there seems to be like a play on, ooh, there's a big bang and it's all science and all that kind of thing, and forget all of that. But you know, it's it's comforting to know that there's people still out there who have that innate sort of belief and knowledge, and that there's something bigger than us out there.
Yeah, I honestly don't know, and I think nobody really does or can prove it, or you know, it makes it tough to make those sort of decisions. So I think all you can do is do what you think is best and what's right, what's good based on whatever that may be. I know some people base it on religious texts or what somebody tells them, and it seems like a lot of it's just cultural or societal. Like people in this neighborhood think this, or people who listen to this television station think this. So
Yeah,
it's tough to navigate sometimes, but I think sometimes you just got to keep an open mind and be make some good critical decision thinking. I don't think it has to be that tough. And I know there's some gray areas, and there's a reason they're gray. People can see both sides of things. So I don't know.
totally.
It's tough to navigate for sure, but I just try to do my best to do what I think what is best.
Yeah, and as you say, that's the best that's the best that anybody can do is do your best. It's when you're like, I don't care. Well, why don't you care? You care? You're like, I care about you, so you should care about yourself, and then in turn, then you should care about other people, kind of thing. But
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
all good.
It's
So
tough to navigate, sure.
it really is. It's that battle. It is that battle. So Adley, please tell us who you are, but do not tell us your name, sir.
Whew. Okay. Well, I think you said it best in the beginning. I'm a father. I'm a fighter. I'm a family man. Uh, that is in a nutshell who I am. And I'm happy to do it.
Excellent, excellent. Thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, share, and tell a friend to tell a friend to tell another friend. Throw your social medias out, sir. I'll make sure I put the links below in the description.
Well, as you know from the beginning, when we're trying to hash this whole Zoom call thing out, I'm not a technology guy, but I'll do my best. Instagram's probably the easiest, what I keep the most up to date on. At Adli Edwards, nothing too fancy there. I'll post things about my fights once in a while, something else, but that's the best way to stay in contact with me. And hopefully, you guys will see me more on the big screen here in the next couple of months. We'll get back in there and get a fight in for you.
Definitely, fingers and toes crossed. We'll see, as you say, back on the big screen, and trustfully, we'll get a victory, kind sir.
Appreciate that. Thank you. That's what I'm gunning for. Let's see what happens.
Definitely. Again, thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. Make sure you go over there onto the social medias. Be nice. Follow. I think, if I'm not mistaken, we can go to the BBC Three app and you can rewatch the Bellator event. So go back there. I think again on YouTube, you can go see X MMA on YouTube. If I'm not mistaken.
I got a few
Um,
things on there, and I know a lot of them are hard to dig up, but I think some people put some highlight reels together for me. Some good friends that are on there and have little snippets of some fun stuff from my fights. So I think if you dig around a little on YouTube, you'll find some action. Hopefully, you guys enjoy what you see. And like I said, the best is still coming. So
yes.
good highlights in there for you for sure.
Perfect. Thank you very much for your time, sir.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.